Wind screamed in my headset so hard it felt like teeth. The Seahawk bucked under me, skids pawing at rain that hit the canopy like handfuls of nails. Salt stung the back of my throat. The cockpit smelled like hot plastic and damp flight suit. I kept 2 fingers light on the stick and lied to the air with steadiness until it believed me. Abort, Lieutenant. That's an order. Command's voice came clean through the static, too calm for the way the ocean below had stopped being water and turned into moving walls. Lightning stitched the horizon shut, then ripped it open again. My storm-worn wings, scratched, nicked, shivered on my chest with every gust as if they remembered who pinned them there. Negative, Command, I said. I've got life readings. Chief Dana Wells leaned forward from the cabin, gloved thumb up, the harness line ready. The altimeter ticked down like a dare. Another blast rolled the bird. The frame groaned. A wave rose to window height and took a swipe at us. Missed, fell away like a building, deciding not to move in. The Seahawk shuddered, recovered. I flew into the gap it left. You'll crash if you drop lower, the controller said. Lightning flashed white and left the world gray-green, the shade of fear that thinks it's practical. Then I'll crash doing my job. Through the next ragged curtain of rain, a shape appeared. Sleek hull on its back, massed clawing sky, a tooth in the water. The yacht was capsized and half-broken, deck lights still pulsing a drowned heartbeat. 3 heat signatures clustered near the stern, one slumping fast. Visual, I said. 3. Dana kicked the door. Storm air punched into the cabin, wet iodine and cold. The hoist cable thrummed. I hovered in a box the weather tried to erase. Steady, I told the bird, but really I told myself. We dropped the basket. A woman slid in, eyes wide, lips blue. Dana hauled her up, hands precise, voice low, then shoved the basket back down into noise. A teenage boy next, shaking so hard his teeth sounded like hail on metal. You're okay, Dana lied kindly. The lie worked. The winch sang, the cable steamed rain. My right forearm burned, I didn't look. The third figure didn't move. Last one's out cold, Dana yelled. Bring him. The basket swung, caught the rail, spun. I danced the Seahawk a hair left, then a breath right, until the angle let Dana muscle him in. He rolled into the cabin, sea pouring off him in sheets. Dana cut the harness, checked carotid, nodded. Pulse. I glanced back just long enough to see his wrist flop. A hospital med tag hung there, white plastic slapped with black font. Grayson N. Under the name, a rank abbreviation that didn't need vowels. ADM. Nathan Grayson. The headset went too quiet. My breath stopped and tried to start again. Grayson. The Atlantic Fleet's iron spine. The man whose rules had shaped half my career and the other half of my childhood without ever being in the room. Grayson, my mother's last name before she changed it? Lieutenant? Command again, too even. Status? 3 souls aboard, I said. The words came out steady because they had to be. The Seahawk lifted through the throat of the gale. The ocean tried to keep us and failed. Rain hammered the canopy like applause we didn't want. Lightning washed the world blank, then gave it back. Cole, Dana said softly over the engine howl. You good? I swallowed salt, copper, something older. Flying. My hands were sure. My head was a storm surge. The med tag winked water on the deck. The name, the rank, the part of my past my mother had folded and put away. All there, in a helicopter I wasn't supposed to be in, with a man I wasn't supposed to have saved. RTB, Command ordered. You disobeyed recall. We'll discuss on deck. Copy, I said. The word tasted like metal. Out the nose, the clouds eased to a dirty pearl. Sea turned from walls back into water. We punched a hole in the weather and found the carrier's deck, lit, honest, waiting. I brought her down smooth. Dana strapped the boy in, steadied the woman's shoulders. The unconscious man didn't stir. When the skids kissed steel, I cut power. Rotor wash fell to a bearable roar. Corpsmen ran in, rain slicking their sleeves. One lifted the man's wrist, read the tag, and blanched. Admiral, he breathed. Then louder. Admiral Grayson. I sat a second longer than I should have. fingers still curved around the stick, air still screaming quietly in my ears. Sarah Cole's voice, the version that taught me to tie my laces and fold sheets military straight, rose from the old quiet place where she'd buried his name. The sea took him, long before you were born. Out on the deck, they carried him past my window. The med tag flashed once in the floodlights. Grayson. The storm had given me 3 lives and one truth I hadn't asked it to spit back. I unstrapped, stood, and felt the deck tilt under me, not from weather, but from the kind of shift you don't fly out of. He taught me rules, I thought, without meaning to. The storm taught me grace. I grew up measuring days by tide charts taped to the fridge and the sound of my mother's boots drying by the door. Our apartment smelled like iodine and lemon cleaner, the hospital on her scrubs, the ship shape she kept at home. When I asked where my father was, Sarah Cole would fold another t-shirt into a rectangle you could salute and say, "The sea took him, long before you were born." She never raised her voice. She just packed it away. On storm nights, we sat on the kitchen floor with a flashlight and a tin of crackers, while rain walked the windows with hard, wet feet. She'd teach me knots on a shoelace, square, bowline, the kind that holds without strangling. "There are knots you can trust," she said once, tying one blind, "and knots you can't." She didn't say which kind a man's promise was. The flashlight made a pale circle on metal. We ate in the small glow and pretended it was enough. By 16, I flew anything with a motor and a prayer, Cessnas out of a strip that smelled like hot rubber and sunburn, a beat-up Hilo sim that coughed when you asked it for cloud. The instructor wrote headstrong on my evaluation and shook my hand like he was apologizing. The word felt like a compliment until it followed me into uniforms. I enlisted, then commissioned, because the Navy sounded more like a door and less like a question. The first time a Seahawk rotored over me on the flight line, the air rewrote my skeleton. Wind pressed through me, a baptism you need sunglasses for. The deck tasted like salt and jet fuel. I ran with a crew of people who understood that hands are for lifting as much as saluting. Flight school was the same everywhere. Coffee that pretended to be diesel, instructors with voices sanded smooth by repetition, checklists that could double as lullabies if you were sick enough. I learned to hold hover with my fingertips in a threat. To read sea state, by the way, whitecaps spoke to each other. To feel when air would lie. I learned that mercy is a skill set, not a sentiment. My file started collecting adjectives. Disciplined, brilliant. Then the ones that travel in pairs like drunks. Emotional risk. The notes read like a weather report for a person, tends to push beyond directives in service of rescue probability. I wore the sentence like a second set of wings. Mother came to my winging in a dress she'd ironed hard enough to make it sound when she moved. The hanger smelled like hot rope and Freon. When they pinned the metal on my chest, she hugged me with the kind of care you use on fresh stitches. "The sea's not a lesson," she said in my ear. "It's a mouth. Don't feed it your bones." I nodded because I loved her. I flew because I couldn't not. Chief Dana Wells ran my crew like a quiet conspiracy. She kept her hair in a braid that could probably tow a buoy, and her sarcasm in a pocket I never saw her use halfway. "You drive," she'd say, clapping the fuselage with a palm that could square a crooked picture from across the room. "I'll keep the bird honest." Hurricane Porter came angry and early, a big spiral that made the forecast map look like a fist closing. The ready room hummed at a higher pitch. The coffee tasted metallic in the paper cups. Command's whiteboard bloomed with arrows and caution. Volunteers? The question hung. I had to stand to stop it from choking me. "Cole," Commander Ruiz said, eyes on the board, not on me. "Figures." He wrote my name in block caps and underlined it once. Approval smelled like dry erase and old sweat. We launched into wall cloud, dark layered on dark, finding light by the way it tried to escape around edges. The radio stacked with voices, then thinned. The long-range calls settled into a rhythm that matched the helicopter's bones. Between sorties, I ate energy bars that tasted like beige and wiped salt off the dials with my sleeve. Sleep was something on another ship. Back on land, when the storm had a name and I had more hours than advice, my mother watched the news with the sound off. The anchors' mouths opened and closed like fish trying to explain a net. Don't go out where you can't be reached, she said, and handed me a sandwich I didn't deserve. That's not a location, I said. She didn't smile. It is for a heart. We didn't talk about fathers, we talked about weather. There were whispers across the pier sometimes, names I never kept, rumors about admirals and restaurants with dim lights and the kind of laughter that needs a door closed. I kept my head down and my hand on the checklist. Nights, I ran a finger over the engraving on my wings until the metal warmed and remembered skin. The first time I flew a hoist in real seas, the basket spun twice and kissed the rail like it meant harm. I steadied the bird, breathed through my teeth, and kept the bubble in its little glass cage. Nice, Dana said over the roar. High praise. Later, she scribbled on my glove with a Sharpie, "You're here. Stay here." I saved the glove like a relic. My record fattened. The adjectives didn't soften. Headstrong, emotional risk. My CO wrote brilliant judgment in the red and needs stricter respect for recall authority in the same paragraph. As if I were two people having a debate, only one of us would survive. When the hurricane sirens wailed this last time and the tasking came in with the word restricted welded to it, Ruiz didn't look up from the clipboard. This one's above our pay grade, he said. We hold. I went anyway. Not because I wanted to prove anything, because the radar bloom on my scope pulsed like a heart you could unstop if you were fast and lucky and disrespectful to fear. Because a voice I didn't know yet had waited 27 years to ruin my plan in one line. Because my mother's sentence, "The sea took him," had been wrong about one thing. It hadn't taken him. He had stepped away. None of that was language I had then. What I had was rain like nails and the stick shaking and Dana's hands already on the harness. What I had was a capsize through lightning and 3 heat returns tight together. What I had was the med tag that slapped white against deck light and spelled a truth. My mother had folded until it forgot its shape. After the landing, in the bay where the Seahawks metal ticked as it cooled, Ruiz read me recall authority like scripture. His office smelled like coffee left too long and a printer that needed a new drum. They're going to make an example out of you, he said without heat. Publicly brave, privately reckless, sit tight. Sitting tight doesn't suit me, sir. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. It never did. He slid a folder across, forms that tasted like dust when you breathed near them. You'll get the commendation. You'll also get the inquiry. Maybe both in the same mail. I signed where the lines told me to sign. Outside, the storm's rumpus softened to a steady drum on corrugated roof. Less rage, more reminder. The hangar lights hummed their cheap hymn. Dana leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, eyebrows doing the work her mouth wouldn't. What? I said. You doing okay, Cole? She asked. The question weighed more than its words. Fine. I lied badly. Hungry. Eat, she said. Nobody flies well on ghosts. I took 2 bites of a bar that tasted like damp cardboard. The med tag image kept flashing under my eyelids. Grayson. N. Like a buoy light trying to tell a story to a night that didn't trust it yet. My mother texted a single line. You're safe? I answered, yes. The dot bounced, paused. Then, good. The phone stayed dark after that. Old habits sailed in formation. By sundown, the inquiry email had arrived. Immediate administrative review, temporary suspension pending court. Commander Ruiz sent a 2-word forward. Brace up. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then blinked them sharp again. Outside, the sea changed color, that pewter to ink shift that means night is about to win. I walked the pier anyway, whined lifting my damp hair and painting salt on my lips. The rescue deck crew shouted in the distance. Good shouts, safe ones. Waves slapped the pilings like a metronome. I put my thumb on my wings and felt their scratches, each one a little history. The storm had peeled something back and left it on the deck at my boots. It would be days before I picked it up and read it out loud. For now, I watched the horizon reappear where lightning had stitched it shut and told myself I had flown through worse than paperwork. The sea breathed. So did I. Somewhere behind me, in an ICU that smelled like antiseptic and breath, trying hard, a man with my mother's old name on his tag lay between machines. The storm had delivered us to each other without permission. Rules protect institutions. Courage protects people. I joined for the second. I was about to learn how much the first hated competition. The hospital air tasted like metal and mint, antiseptic dressed up as mercy. From the corridor outside ICU, I watched through glass while machines breathed for the storm's debris we'd fished out of God's pocket. Fluorescence hummed a tired hymn. Admiral Nathan Grayson, name band snug on wrist, skin the color of old paper, lay under a blanket that couldn't explain him. He looked smaller without rank, tubes making a rigging any sailor would hate. A nurse adjusted a line. His eyelids trembled, then climbed. He surfaced like a cautious diver. Was anyone else saved? He asked, voice sanded down. A Navy pilot, she said, smiling quick. Lieutenant Cole. He froze without moving. The monitor kept its metronome. He shut his eyes once, slow, like a man counting a bruise's pulses. I felt the glass in front of me as much as saw through it, cool against my fingertips, realer than the name on his tag. My breath fogged a small crescent that vanished as fast as it appeared. The sea outside the windows had calmed to a dull sheet of tin. Inside, my ribs hadn't. By sundown, the inquiry pinged my inbox with bureaucratic bite. Immediate administrative review. Temporary suspension pending court. Ruiz added brace up. I shut the screen. The room smelled like coffee that had been braved too long. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. We need to speak. Privately. NG. The three letters hit like slow lightning, bright then late. I stared long enough to make the text look like someone else's mistake. Then I typed back, where? The hospital garden was a rectangle of wet hedges and good intentions, lit by lamps that painted the paths a soft navel yellow. The air held damp and cut grass. Somewhere a generator ticked over. He sat on a bench with a folded navy cap in his lap. No stars now, just cloth. When he stood, the motion borrowed the old authority, then gave most of it back. Lieutenant, he said. The word tried to be professional and failed. Hannah. I didn't help him. Admiral. He glanced at my wings, scratched and dulled by salt, then at my face like he expected a map he'd drawn years ago. Your mother's name, he said quietly as if we were in church. Was Sarah, wasn't it? The hedges hissed in a light drizzle, a sound like steam leaving a story. I held his gaze with the steadiness I saved for bad weather. You knew? His jaw flexed, the cap twitched in his hands. I knew, he said. I just never had the courage to be your father. The sentence went through me the way cold goes through soaked canvas, slow, total. The lamps made halos on puddles. Moths wrote nonsense in the light. Somewhere inside, a monitor's distant beeping found a tempo and insisted on it. You had courage for other things, I said. My voice stayed low. Recall orders, public statements, careers. He absorbed it like a hit he'd earned. I was 24 and ambitious, he said. Your mother was more compass than I was. The Navy couldn't hold both truth and the image I was building. I chose the wrong keeper. Lightning stitched a far horizon, only a memory here. The garden kept breathing. I watched rain gather on the brim of his cap, bead, drop, bead again. You sent the evaluation, I said. Psych hold, to protect me. To buy time, he admitted. They're going to court-martial you for breaking recall in a restricted cell. If I pull you off flight status, I can keep you out of the grinder. You're saving your career, not me. I'm trying to save what's left of your name. Then stop pretending you gave it to me in the first place. The lamps hummed. A gull cried twice, disoriented this far inland. He looked past me at the black slice of ocean beyond the buildings, as if the water could translate. I have more to confess than one night can hold, he said. The yacht, those civilians. There are complexities. People, I said. Not complexities. People I dragged out of a wall of water after you ordered me home. He flinched, small, honest. You reminded command what it's supposed to mean, he said. And you reminded me what I failed at when it mattered most. We stood under drizzle that determined to be rain. He breathed in to add something, apology or order I couldn't tell. I spared him both. They opened the inquiry, I said. I'll stand in it. I'll be there, he said, the vow sounding like a language he was relearning. Not as an admiral, as Nathan. Names are earned, I said. You can start there. He nodded. It looked like surrender finally finding a chair. I turned to go. At the edge of the path, he said, not loud. You fly like somebody who knows what's under rules. Storms, I said without looking back. And people. The garden lamps hummed. I walked toward the glow of the corridor and the smell of 2 clean floors, wings cold against my chest, phone heavy in my pocket, a beacon I hadn't asked for, blinking anyway. Behind me, a man stood in the rain with a cap in his hands and the long, overdue shape of fatherhood beginning to outline itself against the weather. The inquiry room smelled like copier heat and old coffee, truth processed through toner. Fluorescence hummed a thin, nagging pitch that made every sentence feel a size too tight. Commander Ruiz sat across from me with a file thick enough to pass for certainty. He didn't look up when he spoke. You disobeyed a direct recall, he said. His voice had starch. Restricted cell, you knew that. I knew 3 people were dying, I said. He slid a paper forward, my own flight log highlighted. The yellow glowed like bruised light. They're making an example out of you. Then show them the right example. He tapped the page with his pen. Tick, tick, like a metronome for blame. Brave doesn't excuse reckless. Reckless didn't pull them up, I said. I did. He exhaled through his nose, the sound of a door not opening. Publicly, you're a hero. Privately, you're a problem. He closed the file. Administrative hold. Psych evaluation. Effective now. The word psych left a chemical taste. Who requested it? He met my eyes just long enough. Higher. The hospital corridor carried antiseptic and the faint, electric smell of machines that never sleep. Admiral Grayson waited in a side office gone soft with lamplight, blinds making stripes on his dress blues. A pot of coffee sat cooling, the bitter scent settling into carpet. He didn't stand when I entered. He looked like a man practicing gravity. You signed it, I said, holding the form in 2 fingers. The paper rasped like dry surf. I signed it, he said. He didn't flinch. You're saving your career, not me. You disobeyed a direct order, Hannah. His voice dropped a half step, old command trying to sit back down. I'm saving what's left of your name. Then stop pretending you gave it to me in the first place. He closed his eyes once, slow, as if bracing for a wave he owed. I won't let them ground you forever, he said. If I pull you now, I can push back later. Is that an order? I asked, or an apology? His jaw worked. Both. Outside his door, the TV in the family lounge aired silent footage. My Seahawk caught in lightning strobe, a clip of me helping a boy to the deck. Lower third, pilot defies recall, saves 3. In the corner, the rescued woman sat with a blanket and a 1,000-yard stare, sea salt dried white on her cheeks. She held the teen's hand like a tie-down strap. When Grayson limped past the doorway with his cap under his arm, she flinched just enough to register. He didn't look in. He didn't have to know she was there to be responsible for it. Chief Dana Wells met me by the vending machine that smelled like stale sugar and rubber bands. They're sharpening knives, she said, feeding the slot $1 that came out older. They can watch me bleed, I said. I won't let them call that storm a crime. She leaned a shoulder to the humming glass. You're not alone in this one. At 0300, a reporter texted a soft question with sharp edges. Sources say Admiral asked for your eval. True? I stared at the glow until the words blurred into a single smear. I typed back nothing. The phone's blue went dark, leaving the room its dingy yellow. Morning rolled in with sea light through dirty blinds, gray, honest, unpersuaded. Commander Ruiz called me into his office, where the printer's plastic baked the air. He held 2 memos like playing cards he didn't want to show. Command is commending you, he said, voice flat. And convening a court-martial. Both, I said. Same day if they can manage it. He slid the second paper across. A talking points sheet stamped for immediate release. The sentences were polished to a mirror you could get lost in. Exemplary courage under fire, deviation from protocol under review. The contradiction smelled like lemon oil on rot. Sir, I said, they want the headline, not the truth. They want the machine to keep running. Machines don't drown, I said. People do. He rubbed his temple, leaving a small smear of ink there, human residue on regulation. Keep your head down until the hearing. I went where heads don't stay down, back to the ICU. The woman looked up when I stopped at the doorway. Her eyes were the color of deep water and equally unforgiving. You pulled us out, she said, voice raw. I flew the bus, I said. My crew hauled. You held your kid. That's the miracle. She nodded, not smiling. He owes you, she said, and pointed down the hall with her chin. All of us do. Who is he to you? I asked. She hesitated, fingers tightening on the boys. Complicated, she said. And not a conversation for cameras. A corpsman's cart rattled past, the metal on tile, a noise like thin armor. I stepped back. The boy watched me with a look I knew, the one kids wear when adults begin to speak in plurals. You'll be okay, I said. He didn't answer. He didn't need to promise me anything. By noon, I was formally grounded. My Seahawk sat on the flight line under pale sun, oil scent tidy and accusatory. The rotor blades made long shadows like compass needles that had nowhere left to point. Dana tossed me a bottle of water and a look that could square a crooked frame. Court's in 3 days, where she said, they'll take my wings. Maybe. She tipped her head toward the hangar. Unless someone stops pretending. The base PA system coughed to life, delivered a commendation in the same tone you use to announce lunch. My name sounded weird in speakers. Applause filtered through from somewhere, the slow clap of bureaucracy giving itself credit. At dusk, I stood on the seawall, salt in the air and diesel ghosting the wind from the piers. Gulls wrote angry cursive over the channel. My mother's text finally came. I heard, I'm proud. Come by, I typed. After court. The 3 dots appeared, hesitated, vanished. Years of not saying filled the gap. Back in the admin building, the hearing schedule stapled to the corkboard fluttered each time the door opened. Cole, HLT printed neat, the font that believes in order. Under it, a witness list. Ruiz, Dana, the controller. An empty line added in pen, ADMN Grayson. The ink was fresher than the rest. I stared at his name until the letters fell out of formation. He would testify. For whom? For what? The hallway smelled like wet wool and old paint. The overhead lights hummed as if they'd been told to keep quiet and resented it. That night, Grayson called. I let it ring, then picked up. Static lined his breath. They'll try to break you, he said. They'll try to break the story, I said. Silence. Hospital air. An IV pump somewhere counting. I'll be there, he said. His voice had lost a stripe of rank and gained a stripe of human. Wear your truth, I said. It'll fit. I hung up. The dark ship slept. Everything on, everything low. I set my wings on the nightstand. They were cold, scratched, honest. The storm had taught me the shape of mercy. The machine would teach me the cost. I lay awake listening to the bass breathe and the far, low thud of waves against pilings. Steady, stubborn, a rhythm older than rules. The courtroom smelled like wet wool and copier heat. The Navy's 2 favorite perfumes. Sea light pushed through slit windows and pale bars, turning dust into tide. I sat straight in blues that felt a half size too tight and folded my hands so my knuckles wouldn't drum. The microphones purred their low, woolly hiss. A brass clock ticked like a metronome for nerves. Lieutenant Cole, the president of the panel said, you are charged with disobeying recall in a restricted storm cell. Do you understand? I do, I answered. The word tasted metallic. Commander Ruiz testified first. Measured cadence, the clean lines of policy. She flew into a prohibited box, he said. She saved 3 lives. Both are true. Chief Dana Wells followed, voice steady as a hoist cable. She held hover in a moving canyon, she said. She brought them home. I signed the risk. The controller read back my no and commands aboard. The stenographer's keys clacked like rain on tin. The judge advocate leaned into the mic. Lieutenant, why did you disobey? Because there were life readings, I said. And because rules are a tool, not a god. He frowned toward his notes as if looking for a regulation to argue with that sentence. A bailiff opened the side door. Heads turned before anyone told them to. Admiral Nathan Grayson entered on a cane, dress blues crisp, cap under his arm, storm on his face. The room changed pressure. He didn't take the witness chair. He walked to it like a man going below decks into a compartment he'd flooded himself. Admiral, the president began, you are not. I'm here, he said, voice low, even. To testify. Murmurs rippled. The judge advocate stood. Your authorization? My conscience. He raised his right hand for the oath, palm steady, ring silent. He faced the panel. Lieutenant Cole disobeyed a direct recall. He began. The words landed like ballast. A few pens scratched faster. Dana's jaw ticked once. Grayson let the room hold the first clause long enough to think it knew the ending. Then, because I gave that order, he let the sentence breathe. And she broke it to save my life and the lives of 2 civilians. She didn't fail command. She reminded command what it is supposed to mean. Silence took the floor. You could hear paper fibers argue with pen tips. The judge advocate tried to reroute. Admiral, this hearing concerns procedure. And people, Grayson said, not raising his voice. Let's not pretend we lost them in a storm. The president of the panel steepled his fingers. Admiral, clarify the civilian's status. Grayson swallowed. A small, audible click. They were under my protection. He glanced at me and did not look away. My responsibility. My family. The words scraped the room raw. A sailor coughed. Someone hissed a breath through teeth. Dana didn't move. I felt the bench under me harden. The judge advocate's pen hovered, then fell. State their relation, Admiral. He faced the microphones like a man finally learning to speak in weather. A mother and son, he said. From a second life I hid to save my career. He let the ugliness stand. Lieutenant Cole saved them when I told her not to. I ordered her away from the only moral duty in the sky. The room went still enough to hear the clock count a slow measure. The sea light shifted a fraction across the floor. Somewhere a shoe squeaked. A human noise, unmilitary and correct. The president turned to me. Lieutenant Cole, do you have anything to add? I stood. My knees did not shake. My voice knew its lane. He wrote the rules, I said, each word finding its mark. I rewrote them with mercy, with no one objected. Some sentences arrive wearing their own authority. The judge advocate cleared his throat into the quiet. Admiral, did you request Lieutenant Cole's psychological evaluation? Yes. He didn't dodge. I was wrong. Did you attempt to influence this inquiry? No. He exhaled. I'm here to be influenced by it. The president looked down the table, fielding eye contact like signals. Then he folded his hands. This board has heard the facts. He nodded to the clerk. The clerk stilled. Lieutenant Cole acted outside protocol. She also acted within the core purpose of her commission. He paused. You could hear the room choose a collective inhale. Charges rescinded. Flight status reinstated. Recommendation. Commendation for valor under extreme conditions. The words hit like warm air after a long dive. The bench under me softened. The microphones breathed. For a second, no one moved. Then a chief in the back row stood. No flourish, no shouted hoo-yah, just body and spine. Another rose. Then the paneled line of sailors behind them. The room stood. Sleeves whispered. Chair legs bumped. Silence made itself tall. Across the aisle, the rescued boy, the son, had slipped in with his mother, both hushed under civilian clothes. He watched the standing with eyes big as buoy lights. His mother whispered something to him I couldn't hear and squeezed his hand. Grayson saw them, didn't approach, and stood straighter. No rank, just man. The president rapped once, not to scold, just to land the moment. Lieutenant Cole, he said, the Navy will be better served if you keep flying. Aye, I said, because there are still good words worth saluting. As the panel filed out, Grayson turned toward me. The lights made a pale crown on his close-cropped hair. The cane took more of his weight than pride wanted to admit. Thank you, he said quietly enough to respect the room. For all of it. I looked at the woman and kid. His passed my storm for a heartbeat. Fly truthfully up, I said to him. The rest will follow. He nodded. Receipt, not absolution. The room's hum returned. Paper, fabric, breath. The sea light on the floor slid another inch like a tide satisfied with its reach. Out in the corridor, Dana slapped my shoulder with 2 fingers. Still headstrong, she said, and cracked a grin. Good. Keep it flight-worthy. My wings sat cool and scratched against my chest, honest as weathered metal. The storm outside had spent itself. Inside, we'd built a different kind of weather. One that holds, one that carries. The corridor exhaled us into day. Sea light slid in through the slit windows, pale as fish belly. The air smelled like wet wool and copier heat cooling off. My blues fit better now, or maybe I finally did. Dana peeled away to brief maintenance, oil and laughter already in her voice. I walked toward the steps with my wings cold against my chest and the verdict warming everything under them. Reporters pooled at the base of the stairs, cameras tucked like seabirds waiting for tide. Lieutenant, vindication? What's next? Do you forgive him? Microphones smelled faintly of metal and breath. I kept my answers trimmed to working lines. Keep flying, I said. And learn to forgive what I didn't know. Grayson, now just Nathan, requested retirement that afternoon. The memo was 1 page, sharp verbs, no theater, personal integrity. The word family did not appear. It didn't need to. When he left the admin building, he carried his cap in both hands like a folded truth. The rescued boy and his mother watched from the curb, civilian quiet. He didn't approach them. He stood within range and let the air introduce them all over again. At the pier, the wind still wore last night's storm, salt rough on the tongue. I found him there at dusk, cap on the rail, cane hooked over a stanchion. The water slapped pilings in a metronome that didn't ask permission. Diesel and kelp made the evening honest. You've got more courage than I ever had, he said, voice smaller without the room to echo it. No, I said, hands in pockets, feeling the cool oval of my dog tag. I just had more to lose. He breathed that in like clean air after a mask. I requested your eval, he added, facing the horizon. I thought I was protecting you. I was protecting the machine. I'm sorry. Wear it, I said. Don't weaponize it. He nodded. Receipt, not absolution. The gulls scribbled something impatient overhead and moved on. We stood in the smell of rope and rust, not fixing anything, not breaking it further. A week later, my mother finally told me the rest in our kitchen that still smelled like lemon cleaner and old coffee. She didn't sit. She stacked plates like rank. He wanted to stay, she said, eyes on her hands. The Navy told him no. A single mother didn't look good for him. He asked me to be a secret. I said no for both of us. You said the sea took him, I said. It did, she answered. Just not the way I meant. We laughed once, brittle then warm. She pushed a small box across the table. My first plastic wings, storm-scratched, silvered at the edges by time. Maybe now we both have our names back. I pinned my real wings beside the toy pair. The metal felt cool and used. The plastic felt brave and wrong. Between them, something aligned, girl to pilot, silence to speech. Back on the flight line, my Seahawk sat under clean sun, deck smelling like salt and jet fuel in second chances. Dana smacked the fuselage with her palm. Bird's hungry, she said. Let's feed it something that isn't paperwork. Before the next launch, I found the woman and the boy at the base clinic, where the air tasted like antiseptic and hard candy. She held a clipboard like a shield. He squeezed a stress ball until it squeaked. You good? I asked. Getting there, she said. She didn't thank me. She didn't have to. He's figuring out how many fathers you can have in one body. Start with the one who shows up, I said. When I stepped outside, a breeze pushed sea light across the concrete in slow bands. My phone buzzed. Nathan, I'm meeting them properly today. No uniforms. I typed back, good, don't be late. Flight schedule posted with my name restored. Black letters, no asterisk. The rotors spooled up, wind pressing the world into sense. I buckled in, the straps biting friendly. Over the intercom, Dana's voice came through rough and bright. You ready, Cole? Always, I said. The Seahawk lifted, the base shrinking to a toy fleet. The ocean lay out like a sheet hammered flat and shining. The storm had spent itself. The rules had survived. The courage had too. As we skimmed the edge of blue, I touched the wings on my chest, nick, scratch, story, and felt them answer with the cool of earned metal. He taught me rules. The storm taught me grace. Now the job was learning how to carry both without dropping people between them. Dawn put a thin silver edge on the water, the kind of light that didn't flatter, just told the truth. The pier smelled like salt and wet rope. Gulls carved scratchy signatures in the quiet. I rested my palms on the rail, wood cool and damp, and let the chill climb my sleeves until it settled me. Nathan came without the uniform, just a windbreaker and a careful walk, cap folded once and set on the railing between us. No stars, no brim, cloth learning humility. The sea lifted and let go beneath us with patient breath. I met them, he said, eyes on the horizon, without rank, without excuses. How'd honesty fit? I asked. Snug, he said, but right. We stood in the brine hush, listening to water knock the pilings, soft, repetitive, like a lesson you learn by standing still for it. He reached for the cap, then didn't. I kept the truth folded too long, he said. Turns out it creases people. Crease is still smooth, I said, thumb finding the nick on my wings. Metal, cool, familiar. He nodded. Receipt, not absolution. You were right about the rules, he added. They're tools. I was using them like walls. Storms don't care about walls, and I said, people die behind them. He exhaled, sea-cold breath turning warm. I can't fix what I hid, he said, voice low. I can carry it better. Then carry it, I said. Forward, not back. We watched a tug nose a barge through the channel, diesel breath slipping past like a tired promise. The sun climbed a degree. The cap's blue deepened. Somewhere on base, a bugle tested a note and let it go. I could smell coffee from the dock shack and the clean sting of morning metal. Keep flying, he said, as if the blessing were his to give. I plan to, I said. With mercy. He smiled, small, human. I'll learn to speak that. Good, I said. It's the only language the storm respects. He left the cap on the rail when he went, fabric taking the damp like penance. I didn't move it. The sea kept breathing. My phone buzzed. 2 words from my mother. Be kind. I typed back. Learning. The screen dimmed. The water held the light like a steady hand. I walked the pier once more, boots knocking a quiet rhythm. The rotors on my next bird would spool soon. The deck would warm. The sky would quit pretending it had secrets. I touched my wings and felt the scratch where the storm had written its name on me. He taught me rules. The storm taught me grace. Grace outranks blood. If this hit you in the gut, tap subscribe. Come for first-person rescues where rules bend, storms roar, and mercy wins.